Welcome to United Jews channel.
So let's talk about economic recovery. So economy is not in good state because of COVID, because of the impact on the economy, because of many people have died, unfortunately, and the service industry is in ruin, and the country is in debt because of there was not enough taxes collected for many reasons. Um, so how the economy can be restored is a stimulus package will help it. What else can be done? How people can
Well, there's also a
contribute
wider
besides doing their job.
issue here. There's a wider issue here too. Why did we and how did we destroy the service industry and why did we do that? I think we mentioned it last time because I'm looking at the hairdressers, I'm looking at the gardeners, I'm looking at all these people who, and many of them actually are illegals, so they don't get any assistance from the government. And these people are, or waiters at the restaurants and people like that, we undercut their livelihood by instituting these closures. Could we have done it differently? Probably yes. And it's a political issue for sure. I am totally convinced it's a political issue that we should have and could have done it differently. That we instituted these closures so fast and repeatedly several times, where we could have chosen a different model. That probably could have had different effect on the economy and on the sort of mood in society in general, and everybody is scared, everything is bottled up, and everybody's getting cabin fever, stir crazy at home. But the most important thing is, I'm a high-tech guy. I'm sitting at my desk and doing work and getting paid. So I don't really care. But again, all those service industry people, they do suffer, and they suffer badly. So if my hairdresser says, she calls me and she begs me to come to her home in mask and whatever, so she can cut my hair, can pay her $30 in cash, so she can make her living, I understand it. So why would the government not find ways to let her have her hair salon open? And I believe there is a fair bit of political component in this, because it was just before the presidential election.
So you think that the goal of government is to No, I hear what you're saying. You think that there's a specifically a political decision of government to drive all this, you call them illegals, let's call them undocumented.
No, it's not about them.
Stuff on this term.
It's not about them, but when we look at
you're talking about in general the service industry, right? The people service industry, right?
I'm talking about the whole idea that when we look at the democratic state that have pretty tough closure measures, and when we look at Republican states that had much less stringent closures, we know that. Texas and all, because I didn't travel, but my friend, one of my friends traveled all over the country in his car. And he said, once you leave California, it's a different world. Because you go to Lake Tahoe, it's a different world. I mean, you cross the Nevada border, it's a different world. Everything is open, people are happy. So why is that? Why is that so?
Well, first of all, I just came back from Lake Tahoe, was on the California side, and people were equally happy. I was among these people with kids. Everything was great. So I wouldn't, see, the thing is, you start with painting a picture with certain colors, right? One would have blue state, which is big government, which clamps down unnecessary on people, makes them unhappy. On the other side, there's a freedom. There's and by the way, Nevada is not really a red state, right? They have a Democratic senators. One of them I know, by the way, J.K. Rosen is the former director of synagogue there, very respectable, moderate woman. Zilberman. But you see, when we started painting picture in these colors, right, it's kind of from, you know, reaction, right? Because that is not really what it, you know, what things are, right? We know that in the red states, the uptick of coronavirus, you know, in fall and winter, there was a lot of deaths, right? We also this stories from what is it, North Dakota and other Midwestern states where they were peaking and they were barely able to handle intensive care units. Everything was bright red. You know, people were getting really sick and really fast, right? It's in the data. So I think it's really hard to calibrate how much you have to close, right? Because the general guidance is to minimize contact while we didn't have anything else to fight the virus with, right? So you know, the argument of you know, life versus livelihood, which is essentially what we presented, has been heard before, and it's a valid argument. But I think in the absence of very fine data as to how this is transmitted, the government, which is responsible for public health, plays it on the safe side.
Can we talk about schools a little bit for just a second? Because private schools have, some private schools have open doors for twice a week for kids in person. Public schools didn't do that. So here's the, we can talk about disadvantage of kids in public schools, because in private schools, they're getting better education because they are studying in person. So here we go. We're talking about one state. Let's not even go outside. We have in one state, we have two different visions of health right here, right now. So, and it's not what happened yesterday or a month ago. It's right now. Some kids go to school and some kids don't go to school. So let's make everything equal, right? Because it looks like, you know,
To
a
add
little
to
narrow.
that, I agree with that. Topic is really, really important for me too. And to add to that, I have to tell you that private schools, just remind you that private schools are usually well-to-do parents are able to send their children to well-to-do. So those, you know, less fortunate parents cannot send them right now to in person, and they have a lot of limitations. So the liberal elite who is actually saying that they're pro poor and pro less fortunate, actually not doing anything for those children who don't even have computers or a way to connect to internet to see their teachers for their Zoom classes. They cannot study right now. They're not, and it's usually minorities and so forth.
Igor, I have to interrupt you because I have 3 children right now in San Francisco School District. So they all were given computers, and if there was a problem with the internet, they would be given hotspots. So that I cannot, I mean, I'm very thankful. I think that they're doing a good job with that, but I think they face a different problem. A few days ago, there was an article that they cannot track a lot of kids who do not participate. They don't come on Zoom. They don't know how to find them. They don't know where they are. They don't know what they're doing. And that's a big issue right now. So, and those are usually kids who are from disadvantaged families. And there could be many, many different issues, right? But I am saying that it's our big pain in, let's say, let's stick to one city, okay? Because everything is equal. There's one city, same law, right? And yet we have different outcomes. And why is that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say let's avoid using the labels, right? So, you know, I don't call anybody a crazy right-wing nut. So let's avoid terms like liberal elite, okay? That's number one. Number two, my kids went for 8 years. I have two sons. They went to public school for 8 years, and my younger one, was in 8th grade in Presidio when the pandemic hit. When, of course, the schools were not prepared. That's true. And what Igor has described was partially the case, in the spring and summer of 2020. That's true. It was the school district was not ready for a pandemic. But I also have to attest that towards the fall, everybody got the computers and everybody got hotspot access. So it really was up to family and the kids themselves to be disciplined and get to start. Of course, it's still harder to get organized, but I wouldn't. And that problem existed before, right? Because the poor families, even before that, had trouble sending kids to school, right? I mean, of course, the free education is, not really free. It's paid by our taxes, but it supports and gives the families the opportunity to go and work. And I wouldn't, like, for example, my kids now, now they go to private school, right? Because that's their decision. We support it. The school is very small. It has 200 kids in total, but they send message right away that they're going to be basically playing by the San Francisco Unified School District guidelines. So they close at the same time. And just now, this February, in 2 weeks, they're going to reopen gradually, like for 3 times, 4 times a week for 2 grades, 9 and 10, and then 11 and 12. They're doing it because they can. It's a small school. They really can, separate the kids to a degree, and they can control it. It's a Jewish community high school. It's very limited access. They can control every single person who comes in, comes out. It's easy, right? If you talk about Lowell, for example, where there's 2,000 plus kids on the campus, and how can they control, how can they contact trace? How can you do this, right? They have a lot of liability, and also, teachers being, I think, maybe excessively concerned, maybe justly concerned about their health, and they don't want to, risk exposure to kids in families may still have a virus. So,
how big is your
again,
Jewish community high school? How big is your Jewish community high school?
It's not mine. It's
Well, I have a first grader who cannot go back to school. First grader in a small, it's an elementary school with 400 kids. I'm sure
Okay.
Jewish Community Center has, probably has the same amount of kids, and yet they're open. And
What's that?
my
200.
200, but it's not even about that. It's about they cannot even open it for small children who need communication really, really badly. And it's your high school is open. It's like, wow, you know how many high schools are open? Almost none. It's a really you are an elite. I know you don't like the labels, but if you think about it from the perspective of parents who cannot send their kids in person, who have to watch them on Zoom all day long, and because the whole education is on parents right now for those little kids. We have to babysit, we have to make sure they're on Zoom. We have to tell them the time. Now it's your time to go, because they don't know themselves yet. They can't self-organize. Parents, and imagine a family with 2 small kids and both parents are working. They're going crazy. So I see that, to me, this is not fair. This is not fair, honestly. And if you are wealthy, you send your kids and they have better education. Private
Two
schools.
separate questions, right? First of all, just to level set, we're not that wealthy, right? And that's, we really have to scramble to send the kids to private school at the same time. Then we're likely to get some scholarship too, so that really makes a difference for us. And this problem exists independently of the virus. it's the same thing, right? We've always been debating, hey, what is when you send the kids for elementary, public school or not, what's the attention they get, et cetera. So this kind of inequality existed before.
I do not,
Just
I do
the
not
education kind of
dispute. Yeah, no, I don't dispute inequality in private and public schools. We all made a choice. You pay money, I don't. We made that choice. I'm talking about the law in terms of the accessibility to school for children. Your accessibility, like you can and we can't, that's what I'm disputing. I understand the quality of education of public school, but why is one open and another is not? And who is stopping of reopening all the public schools? Why is it not? Why is it so difficult? That's what I'm disputing. With everything being equal, I'm not disputing inequality. You send your kids because you can, you work, you have money for that. Great. But come on, going to school.
Well, I mean, there's two solutions to this, right? First, you can choose to find creative ways to keep the public schools open, or you institute a law that the private schools should also close. So there's two ways of doing that. So the government does none of the two.
Exactly. And another example I'm going to give you. One of my sons is a gymnast. They closed all the gyms in San Francisco, and even coach left. Said competitive coach. He left. So all the kids, just think about it. The government says, "Oh, we don't want to spread COVID." They closed the gym. Competitive program at the gym. And you know what parents did? They moved their kids to the gym that has their doors open. So now all the kids from San Francisco have to go to San Mateo, and back and forth several times a week just because that gym is open. I mean, this is nonsense. This doesn't make any sense because people have to go back and forth just because those people found creative ways to keep the program open, and San Francisco people could not. So how does that make anything equal? How does it make anything better? Who is winning in this situation? Who is keeping people from COVID? There's just, it's insane what's happening. It just doesn't make any sense. So how can you comment on this? Anybody?
Well, it
Well,
doesn't.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you more. I walk my dog every night, and there's this neighbors I have on the next street down, and their garage door is up every night, and these guys are running a small private gym out of that garage. I could see them every night. I mean, there are people coming in and exercising. They have the equipment, they have the weights and everything. It's young people mostly. So they do have masks, but they wear them like below the nose and all that kind of thing. So life will find a way, as they say.
So they self-organized to go to one person organized a gym in his garage and invited others to join. So people see, here's what we do to spreading COVID. People find ways to still see each other and exercise, no matter what the government says.
That's right.
Well, you're talking about very local governments, right? So you're saying that I haven't checked, but I can check it quickly. But I'm too tired. San Francisco has a lockdown on gyms, but San Mateo County does not. Is that how this loophole was found, basically? But so they just kind of defied the law and reopened gyms.
They found a way. No, they found a way to make everything legal. You can believe it or not, people are very genius finding ways.
I do believe it.
Yes. So, and they do everything legally. So
people borderline legally.
Yeah. So, and that works. And because parents even are willing to drive back and forth all the time, like so many times a week, just to get their kid to join the program. This is it's such a huge burden on the family right now for us. And I don't understand why San Francisco government made this burden on us. I don't understand. I don't know who makes the decision, and I'm questioning the decisions of local government because I don't know who sits in power, who decides for this. People who decide are just not capable to make wise decisions. That's what I see. And I don't know how to change that.
Vote.
What about you, Daniel? Do you think everything that government, San Francisco government does is wise?
Come on, let's not get into this, everything or nothing, right? I mean, it's all, of course, it's a mix, right? So it's the same situation. I mean, see, the point is, your and replics, your comments, Tanya, I'm sorry, just I'm being very straightforward. You're taking position that is, I know it matters to you, you're very emotional about that as a parent, as a woman. I totally understand that, right? There are a lot of things that I'm emotional about too. That doesn't make us right. So I think there is no, unfortunately, there is no verified algorithmic path that tells you in times of pandemic, you can do X, Y, Z, but you cannot do W, et cetera, right? If that existed, I would assume that public health would follow it, right? It's um, it's like you know that saying, damn if you do and damn if you don't, right? So damn if you close, people will become playing like you do. And I, of course, I love going to gym when I can, JCC, and now I cannot, right? And my kids cannot go to basketball. Of course, it's upsetting, right? But then, somebody will get there and get a COVID, and then the whole place will get liable for this, and they don't want that either. So it's really hard to make those decisions without having a way out, such as vaccination available for everybody, etc. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm not part of the government, right? I'm just thinking that they have guidance from the state. For example, we went out yesterday was my wife's birthday, and so we first in a long time we went out and we had an outdoor meal, and we sat outside in a mask, and the waitress tells us, according to the guidance of state of California, please keep your mask on when you're not eating, right? Is it good? No, of course not, because we want to talk to each other, right, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the guidance that's produced, to the best of their knowledge to minimize the risk, right? They just, it trickles down all the way to this restaurant, and they have to comply, right? So, we may not like it, right? But it's safer on average to do that than not to do that. And that's probably will change them. But
nobody is looking at the mental state of people component, unfortunately, because people look at physical state. You get COVID or you don't get COVID. You die from it or you don't die from it. People do not look at the mental state of people who can't do the activities they used to do. People are lonely. People are there's so many issues, but people drink to the overdose. I mean, why everything is like only keeps track of COVID and non-COVID? There's other things in life that nobody is tracking right now. And people need to wait. I mean, government needs to see what's happening to people. People are getting crazy and crazier. And that's what bothers me. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen when everything gets opened. So many people's lives got changed, right?
Yeah. Well, for Dan there, just suggestion of the topic, since his wife was, was birthday, and sounds like he didn't have too much fun in San Francisco in the restaurant. My suggestion, do what I did on my day off. I took my wife out and we drove to Sonoma. It's very flexible there. Nobody tells you to put the mask between your sips of wine. So we did have outside meal, but it was very enjoyable. Yeah. So that's
good advice. You'll be surprised, but I already took it even before you told me that. So we're going to Sonoma on Saturday. But thank you.
Great. It's a great solution. Yes. I can't
Good.
enjoy
See?
San Francisco restaurants right now. It doesn't have anything to do with my political views. It's just impossible. It's cold. It's very strict, and so forth.
Yeah, of course. Liberal elites make it cold.
No.
Okay, no, sorry. I just pulling your leg. The food was great. Okay, we enjoyed the food.
Yeah.
Okay.